so small. Every vote certainly counts on both sides. Eva McKinn, thank you so much for that reporting. And joining us now, CNN senior political commentator and former special assistant to President George W. Bush, Scott Jennings, and Democratic strategist and co-founder of Lift Our Voices, Julie Rodzinski. Great to have both of you with us. Julie, I want to start first with you. Our reporting indicates the 3 C's is what they're looking for: competency, chemistry, core values. With that in mind, how do you see this playing out in the next 24 to 48 hours? It has been interesting to listen to the chattering class in D.C. First it was, it's definitely going to be Mark Kelly. Then it was definitely going to be Josh Shapiro. Now there's this last-minute push for Tim Walz. How do you see this all playing out?
Well, look, she needs to, first of all, have somebody with whom she's got synergy and who's not going to have any bombshells dropped on her anytime between now and a very short vetting process. But look, if you want to use alliteration, I would say the alliteration here is she looking for somebody who could deliver a message? Somebody like a Tim Walz is great at doing that. Somebody like a Martin Bashir, who Scott I'm sure knows well, is doing very well in that capacity. Or does she need somebody who's going to help her extend her map, in which case, of course, Josh Shapiro and Senator Kelly are probably the two who are strongest positioned to do that. And so from her perspective, we don't know what her own internal polls are showing, but whatever they are, I suspect that's where she's going to hone down, because either she needs somebody to help her deliver the strong message against Trump that she's been delivering since she's become the nominee, or she needs somebody who's going to just help her shore up those electoral votes in places like Pennsylvania, which she desperately needs to win in order to win this election.
Yeah, and Scott, again, this is still, I want to underscore to everyone, she's still meeting with people as we speak. We've just talked to Eva McKinn outside her residence. But in these final hours, we're seeing the stories and the storylines shift and evolve. Politico is reporting that Pennsylvania Democratic Congressman John Fetterman of Pennsylvania is advising the Harris team not to pick Josh Shapiro, of course, the governor of Pennsylvania. Senator Bernie Sanders coming out for Tim Walz. What do you make of those moves, and do you think the vice president is taking that advice into account?
I love the intrastate or interstate, whichever it is, political rivalries over there in Pennsylvania between Shapiro and Fetterman. I think they served on the parole board together at one time, so never underestimate the pettiness of politicians. Look, Shapiro's objectively the best choice. She has to win Pennsylvania. If she doesn't win Pennsylvania, she probably isn't going to win the election. He helps her more than anyone else in Pennsylvania. He's no guarantee, but it's obvious to everyone. All the pros know that. The problem with Shapiro is he's Jewish, and he has said supportive things of Israel, and there's a whole bunch of Democrats that can't stand it. And she's going to have to decide whether she wants to stand up to that part of her base that's effectively awash in anti-Semitism. That's the issue with Shapiro right now. I think she should choose him because it helps her politically, but also it sends a message that she's not going to be bullied by this part of her base. So it'd be interesting to see what she does, but it's pretty obvious to most people that Shapiro's the right answer. It's just a question of whether she can get to the right answer, and sometimes in politics you can't.
And Julie, look, there's a lot of talk about what a vice president can bring to a ticket. In the end, it is often that people vote for the top of the ticket, of course. If you can get some benefit out of your vice presidential pick, fantastic. But will they bring a state with them? Will they not? Will they bring a group of voters with them? Will they not? But in the end, what do you think that her decision most says about the vice president? Because it really is the first time she's making a big decision and telegraphing to Americans. It does give us some information about how she'll want to govern, why she's choosing a certain person.
Well, Scott, first of all, let me just respond to something Scott said. Nobody in our party is sitting down with Nick Fuentes or saying that there are people on both sides who are saying Jews will not replace us, who are good people in the way that Donald Trump has been. So I want to stow the talk about anti-Semitism in my party when you have a standard bearer of yours.
The anti-Semitism in the United States and around the world is rampant on the left, and you know it, and you can't talk your way out of it. It's a good try.
Scott, nothing can compare to what Donald
Nice try.
Trump
It's a good try.
With respect to empowering anti-Semites. But I will also let me just finish my thought here, which is that look, Josh Shapiro would be a fantastic candidate. I spend a lot of time in Pennsylvania. I can tell you right now, I speak to Republicans all the time in Pennsylvania who may not love Democrats, but they love Josh Shapiro. So he's an absolutely very strong candidate for her to choose, as is everybody else that she's talking to, as is somebody like a Martin Bashir, who may not bring Kentucky with him, but nevertheless is a great message to contrast with somebody like a J.D. Vance, as is somebody like Tim Walz in Minnesota, who really is, unlike J.D. Vance, representative of Midwestern values, as is somebody like a Mark Kelly, who actually has had a role in the military and as an astronaut that can contrast very well with somebody like a Donald Trump. So I think, look, the beauty of the Democratic Party right now is there's almost an embarrassment of riches in terms of this next generation that's been coming up. And I think any one of the people that we talked about and several more who we aren't talking about would be fantastic candidates.
And Scott, I want to ask you about some of the reporting Eva just gave us about this Republicans for Harris arm that's being launched. There isn't a comparable Democrats for Trump. What do you make of the Harris campaign trying to go after some of these disaffected Republicans, perhaps Nikki Haley voters, and trying to make an effort to get them in November?
Well, of course, there's been disaffected Republicans with Donald Trump since he came on in 2016. There's been a dedicated Never Trump wing of the Republican Party. It's, probably 10 or 12% of the party. So they're smart to do that. I just disagree that there aren't Democrats for Trump. Look at the polling. He doesn't have the Democratic elites. I don't think he would want them.
Yeah, I just was saying, like,
working class Democrats for Trump all over this country.
He's got that have voted before. No, I was just saying, like, an actual arm and an actual effort by the campaign in kind of a formalized way.
Yeah, look, I don't think you're going to see huge numbers of liberal Democratic elites come out and declare their allegiance to Trump. What the Democrats he speaks to are working class Democrats, people in unions, the people in the UAW in Michigan, for instance. I know they endorsed Biden and then Harris, but a massive percentage of the UAW people in Michigan are going to vote for Donald Trump. Their union boss, Sean Fain, has admitted that in interviews. So Trump's Democrat coalition, they're not elites. They don't have titles. They get up and go to work every day, and that's what they do, and that's who they're banking on in terms of their Democrat coalition building.
And Julie, how do you see it in terms of the Harris campaign? Look, all of the Biden campaign staffers have stayed in place. They've put some additional people, especially at the top of the leadership. But this campaign is different. It has different type of messaging. It has a different style to it. How have you seen it evolve in its 2 weeks that it's been in existence?
Well, first of all, it's much more nimble, right? And it's not sitting on defense or waiting for anybody to punch them. They're going out there and they're taking the message to Trump, which is what the Democratic Party has really been hungering for the last, ever since Trump got into this election. It's something that, although I love and respect Joe Biden, I didn't see him doing as well as she's been doing and as well as her campaign has been doing since she's got into the race. Second, I would say that the people that she brought on were, a lot of them, David Plouffe, Stephanie Cutter, are former Obama people. And you do see that kind of energy. And I'll say this as somebody who's been around for quite a while. I mean, you do see this kind of energy around her campaign that I haven't seen since 2008 when Barack Obama first ran. It is a joyful campaign. It is an aggressive campaign, but it's also a forward-facing campaign. It's not about the past, not about Donald Trump talking about what it was like when he was president. It's not about Joe Biden, who's been around a long time. It's a pretty forward-facing, joyful campaign. And that's something that I really have not seen since Obama was a fresh face on the scene in 2008. Even Hillary Clinton, of course, you reminisce quite a bit about the time that her husband was president back in the 90s. This is much more forward facing. And this is something that I think Generation Zers and millennials and those who maybe were not around for the 2008 Obama campaign have not experienced themselves. And I'm so happy they can now, because I think that's what they're seeing right now.
Yeah, it is interesting to see the new polling from those CBS polls that show this race tightening. It is certainly a race, and it will be hard fought on both sides. Scott and Julie, my thanks to both of you for being here. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Still ahead, Tropical Storm Debbie headed toward Florida. Rain and wind already hitting